It was supposed to be just a ride home. After the meeting ended late, Julian offered Lynn a lift back to his dorm, thinking nothing of it. Lynn, with his usual quiet nod, slipped into the passenger seat of Julian's beat-up Honda Civic, eyes tired but posture rigid. The kind of tension you carry when life doesn't give you space to relax. Julian had always noticed Lynn, the way he hovered on the edge of every room, listening more than speaking, the way his hands shook slightly when he handed over group project notes, and the way his laugh when it did come sounded like it didn't get much practice. But that night something shifted. They didn't speak much during the drive, just the soft hum of Bon Iver playing from Julian's phone. But as they neared the campus gates, Lynn said, quietly, "Can we not go back just yet?" Julian glanced over. Lynn wasn't looking at him, just staring out the window, eyes glinting with something that wasn't quite sadness. Or maybe it was. "Yeah, sure," Julian replied, taking a turn toward the lakeside instead. They ended up at the edge of the water, sitting on the hood of the car. The night was cool, quiet. Crickets sang in the background. You ever feel like you're walking around pretending to be someone else? Lynn's voice broke the silence like a whisper into still water. Julian didn't answer right away. He just looked at him. Really looked. "All the time," he said. Lynn finally turned his face, moonlight catching on his tear-streaked cheek. "I can't tell my parents. Not now. Not ever. I don't even know if I'm allowed to want what I want." Julian's heart squeezed. Not out of pity, no. Never that, but something deeper. Recognition. Shared pain. "You want to be loved," Julian said gently. "That's not a crime." Lynn's shoulders trembled. And in that moment Julian reached over, hesitated for a breath, then touched his fingers to Lynn's, letting them rest there. Just enough for Lynn to know he wasn't alone. Not tonight. Julian didn't mean to fall. Not in the way that left you sleepless, wondering if the other person was warm or crying or breathing okay through the dark. But he fell anyway. Every time Lynn showed up at his apartment with those soft, silent eyes and a notebook full of excuses just to study. Every time he lingered too long before leaving. Every time he reached for Julian's hand and flinched like he'd done something wrong. It was a slow burn, full of stolen moments and almosts. But underneath all of it was this ache because Lynn still hadn't said the word gay, or even bi. He hadn't told anyone. He wasn't ready. Julian knew how that felt. But knowing didn't make it easier. One night it boiled over. They were in Julian's kitchen washing dishes after dinner. Lynn dried plates while Julian scrubbed. Normal. Mundane. Until Lynn looked at him and asked, quietly, "What are we?" Julian paused, fingers still in soap. "What do you want us to be?" Lynn swallowed hard. I don't know. I want to be near you. I feel safe with you. But when I think about telling anyone, it feels like I'm suffocating." Julian's chest tightened. "So you're saying I'm your secret?" he said softly, not bitter, just honest. Lynn looked stricken. "And oh, I mean, I don't want it to be that way. I just me family. They don't even say the word gay. I was raised on shame, Julian. It's in my blood." Julian took a shaky breath. "And I was raised on silence. Doesn't mean either of us deserves to stay in it." Lynn's eyes filled with tears, but he turned away. That night he left without saying goodbye. Weeks passed. No calls. No texts. Julian tried to convince himself it was over. Maybe it had to be. You can't keep loving someone who's not ready to love themselves. But love didn't care. It haunted him in the bookstore where they'd shared their first accidental brush of hands. In the smell of garlic and lemongrass that reminded him of Lynn's cooking. In the late hours when loneliness pressed against his ribs like a vice. And then on a rainy Thursday afternoon Lynn showed up. Soaked to the skin, shivering on Julian's doorstep. Julian opened the door and just stared. "Lynn, what?" "I'm sorry," Lynn said, voice shaking. "I've been scared. Of my parents. Of myself. Of you." Julian didn't speak. Just let him continue. "But I realized something," Lynn whispered. "I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of disappointing anyone else." Julian's throat tightened. And then Lynn did something he'd never done in public before. He reached out, took Julian's hand, and didn't let go. It wasn't perfect after that. There were still fights, still fear, still nights when Lynn flinched at shadows or recoiled when someone looked at them too long in a restaurant. But there were also mornings. Mornings where Lynn made Vietnamese coffee for two and wore Julian's oversized flannel shirt. Where they danced barefoot to the sound of kettle whistles and the thrum of rain. Where Lynn whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." And one morning, after a long night of tears and truth, Lynn lay in Julian's arms and whispered the words that had been building inside him like a storm. "I'm crying because this is the first time love ever felt real." Julian brushed a kiss against his forehead. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure it stays real." Lynn smiled just a little and finally, didn't flinch when Julian kissed him back. By spring, Lynn had come out to his sister. It wasn't a big coming out. No rainbow flags or speeches. Just a quiet afternoon over iced tea, where he said, "I think I'm in love with a man." She blinked, then smiled. "Good. He must be amazing. You're glowing." And when he told Julian that night, Julian laughed and cried at the same time. Told you she'd love you. They curled up on the couch, watching reruns and feeding each other popcorn. For once, the world didn't feel like a battle. The real world still existed, of course. People stared. A few sneered. But Lynn had stopped shrinking. He stood tall now next to Julian, not behind him. When graduation came, Lynn walked across that stage with Julian's hand in his pocket. Not hidden, just home. After the ceremony, Julian pulled him close, in front of everyone, and whispered, "You okay?" Lynn's eyes brimmed. "I'm okay. Don't cry." Julian smiled, but Lynn touched his cheek and added, voice trembling, "I'm crying because this is the first time love ever felt real." And Julian? He cried too. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.